Yo!
Hello.
Hope everyone's doing well on a Monday.
Yeah, I hope you guys are having it's hot.
It is
hot
hot.
one, a hot Monday.
Happy belated Father's Day to everybody out there. And we have a great one today. We have a really interesting guest, someone we're meeting for the first time, getting to talk to specifically. And we'll go ahead and, actually, let's do the intro that I always forget to do, and the streak continues. My name is Chad Smith.
And I'm Tyranny Smith.
And we are the hosts of the Voice of Oklahoma, or Voice of College Football Oklahoma channel. We stream on Mondays at 7 Central ish. And
we are the Sooner Smiths
and we're
live
the Sooner
show.
Smiths live show on the channel as well. So not only do I miss it, we're getting changes, and you know I'm not the best.
And if you're just now joining us, please subscribe to the channel, because not only is it us, we also have added Josh to the mix. He's doing a wonderful job on Tuesday evenings and also doing a call-in show on Thursdays. We say that we're going to join him. We hope
I'm going to try to join this week.
But man, we're struggling with that. It's really hard when you get off at work as late as we do. We have to come home. But
Josh is great though. If he has some really good content put up on the channel. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, go ahead and like the video. And we see we already have some people in the comments, so I'll let Chad introduce our guest. Of course, it's Stacy. Hello, Stacy.
Hey, Stacy. We're doing well. Yeah. So let's go ahead and bring him on. His name is Will Gunter, correct?
Yes, sir. You got that. You got that 100% correct. Yes, sir.
There you go.
Will with one L.
With one L, yeah. I have some friends with Will with two L's.
Let's not go down. We don't have enough time for that. I'm not wearing a watch right now, but boy, could you open up a 40-minute segment of me going through name changes in the 43 years that I've been on this earth.
That's awesome. Well, we know the host of the early game on 107.5, the game in Columbia, and 100.3 the game in Myrtle Beach. I read as well. We want to thank you. We wanted someone here that could talk about South Carolina. It is a woeful memory for many OU fans joining the chat right now. But let me start there. Let's start with last season. Shane Beamer, obviously Oklahoma ties. We know him well. I think ubiquitous with Oklahoma fans. They all love him. They love his energy, who he is kind of as a coach, as a person. What are your thoughts on last season? Where the fans stand? Did it live up to expectation? Did it surpass? Did it not get to the level you guys hope to see? Kind of just your thoughts on 2024.
Yeah, obviously the Norris Sellers is the focal point, and this was a guy that was not. A matter of fact, Bruce Feldman had a great article in the Athletic today about Lenora Sellers and kind of his rise. And to give you some background, I covered recruiting for 24/7. I covered recruiting for ESPN and then 24/7 Sports and so forth and so on very early in my career. And so I understood football recruiting. I understand kind of how guys can fly under the radar. And Lenora Sellers here in the state of South Carolina is a 6'3", 6'4", 245-pound kid who got injured his junior year and didn't get to go to camps. And I know how this works. If he'd have gone to camps, you're probably talking about a 5-star quarterback. But he didn't get to go. And South Florence is not a huge school. Florence is a big town itself, but South Florence is not a huge school. And he only played his senior year, and I think it was something like 51 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and he led them to a state championship. He had actually committed to Virginia. Originally, the offensive coordinator for Virginia went to Syracuse. He switched his commitment to Syracuse, and South Carolina, kind of late in the process, offered after missing on Dylan Lonergan, who went to Alabama, and South Carolina ended up with Lenora Sellers. And there was a lot of us people that I still talk to in recruiting that was like, man, this kid might be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country. And they were like, he didn't get the exposure. He didn't go to the camps. He was injured. Nobody saw him the way you should see a recruit. And so I think there was a lot of us around here when he committed that would, quite frankly, were like, wow, this is a huge pickup. Now, if you were to look at On3 or 24/7 Sports or ESPN, you'd be like, well, he's a 3-star. What's the relevance of this? You just got another in-state kid. And I think a lot of us, again, knew. And so he was a red shirting his first year, and he had a couple plays that were just spectacular. But unfortunately, as we all know, they came against Vanderbilt and they came against Furman, and we all went, well, it's Vanderbilt and it's Furman. Who cares? What does that mean? But there was a lot of excitement for him coming into last year, and he got off to a slow start. It looked like he was progressing in the LSU game, and he gets injured on a play right before halftime. South Carolina would go on to lose that game. I think a lot of people think that South Carolina wins that game if he stays healthy. He he came back for the Mississippi game and was not good. And South Carolina got blown out of the water. So we go to Alabama the next week. and had a blast, and it was a great trip to Alabama. But South Carolina gets up. I don't know what y'all guys remember, but South Carolina gets up and really kind of blew that game. Had that game, and Sellers was playing better, but I think there was a lot of questions about. And I apologize. I got a cat that's running around. So if a cat, right? It's
Oh, hey,
its
you're
way,
totally good.
It's
You're fine. No worries.
so yeah, if a cat makes its way into the screen and anywhere during this thing,
It's
I
okay. Bonus
apologize.
points if the cat appears. Honestly,
Yeah,
big
this
animal
is
friends.
rogue cat right now. But anyway, he played better in the Alabama game, and so I think you could see the development. And it's not like if you look at his numbers in the Oklahoma game, he was great. Obviously, what happened to that game was South Carolina ran out to a 21-0 lead. Michael Hawkins threw a couple interceptions there, a pick six to Nick Eamon-Warry, who just went in the second round of the draft. South Carolina jumped all over Oklahoma. I did not get to go to that game, so I cannot speak to the atmosphere at that game and how things were going. But I know
Oh, it was a
Oklahoma was kind
ball
of
in that stadium.
yeah,
You
it was
could
kind
hear a
of it was
mouse
an
peeing on
early game.
cotton.
It was an 11 a.m. kick if I remember correctly, and 11 a.m. for y'all, 12 a.m. for us. Just went poorly, and it just that kick started South Carolina's season. Sorry, I gotta move this. Get out of the way.
That's awesome.
But it really kick-started the season for South Carolina, and obviously led to a lot of good things. I think coming down the stretch with wins over Texas A&M and Missouri, and certainly that season closing game against Clemson.
What are your thoughts right now with Shane Beamer, the talent he's been able to accumulate? Obviously, you probably have a future number 1 overall pick as a defensive end, which is rare to say. I mean, Dylan Stewart's a legit guy. It seems like he's starting to get a pretty good roster built up there that you can see a lot of success coming in the next few years for sure.
That was the selling point. Now, I knew Shane back when he was here in 2010, 2011, and the recruiting coordinator in South Carolina had, under Steve Spurrier at that time, had some of the best classes that they had ever had with Marcus Lattimore and Jadeveon Clowney and Stephon Gilmore and a bunch of those guys that came through. Mike Davis went on to have a running back, went on to go have a very good career. But so I knew Shane back then and got really close with him because, again, as I mentioned, I was doing the recruiting for 24/7 Sports and ESPN, and that was the selling point when South Carolina hired him away from Oklahoma. It's like, hey, this guy's got to put some coordinators around him, but he's going to develop. He's going to develop some relationships, and he's going to be able to recruit. And so you just mentioned it. Dylan Stewart was a 5-star and one of the top recruits in the country. That was a freshman last year. Nick Harbor was a 5-star and one of the top recruits in the country. That seems to be coming along at a very high pace right now. Obviously, we've seen some of the other guys. Josiah Thompson this past year or 2 years ago was a 5-star that South Carolina landed. So we knew the recruiting would be well, and South Carolina is off to a good start. I think they're being a little more selective. But I think one of the things that's happened is Shane Beamer has really knocked it out of the park with the transfer portal. And for example, Kyle Kennard, who was the Bronco Nagurski Award winner this year, you're talking about a guy who came from Georgia Tech, and we were excited. We were happy. Hey, that's great. We didn't expect that. Demetrius Knight, who was a linebacker, who was originally went to Georgia Tech as a quarterback, went to Charlotte and played linebacker. When he committed, everybody's like, okay, cool. That's really cool. And South Carolina, to be honest with you, at the end of 2023, had lost 2 4-star linebackers, Stone Blanton, who went to Mississippi State, and Grayson Pup Howard, who was a huge pickup, by the way. That was a huge pickup in 2023, transferred back to Florida. And what ended up happening is that basically South Carolina, through the transfer portal, but also through recruiting, was able to replenish that, and not only replenish that, but upgrade.
Right. So you're having Sellers come back, which is obviously huge for South Carolina. Stewart's coming back, which is obviously a huge for South Carolina. Is there anybody though that you think could be a dark horse on your team, essentially? Maybe somebody that wouldn't be known as far as, an average football fan, but who's somebody from South Carolina would know and to be looking on the lookout for going into the 2025 season?
It's interesting. I think there's a lot of names. We probably don't have enough time, and the reason I say that is because, let's start at defensive tackle. One thing that is made when South Carolina's been at its best in 2010, 2011, and 2012 was not only high-end talent but depth at defensive tackle. And South Carolina is going to bring in a former 5-star recruit, Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, who went to Texas A&M. He had torn his ACL. at the very end of an Under Armour All-American game, and so when he tore it, he wasn't ready for Texas A&M, and so it didn't work out. And he's here now, 6'4", 6'3", 315 pounds. He had a very good spring. He's expected to start. And again, on paper, take it for what it's worth, he was a former 5-star recruit.
We just to add to your point, he was a Oklahoma commit in high school in October of he committed in October or so, and when Thibodeau went to SMU, that was his tie. Funny enough, whenever BV got hired, Bob Stoops and then went on the recruiting trips with him. And one of their photos, they were diehard OU fans. His whole family is, because his dad played he was a legacy athlete at OU. And they had all this.
I do remember this, actually. I think you're right. I think I do remember, because I follow recruiting pretty closely, and I think I do remember all that happened. I didn't piece it together until you just said it, but I think I do vaguely remember that now.
Yeah, and he was the guy. Like, you're 100% right. He was the guy out of that, because they got Shamar Stewart. They had A&M got him, Shamar Stewart, and then I can't remember they had Walter Nolan. We're all going to be in that recruiting class together. It was like 3 of the top 4 defensive lineman recruits went to A&M that year. And you're right, Brownlow Denny was the guy, and then he got injured, and that's actually, I had that in my notes to bring up, was that it looks like he's continuing to get players that, if he can just pan out, I mean, he'll be a huge pickup for South Carolina, for any team, but he's there. So
yeah, and we'll see. I think, but I think in the SEC you also have to have depth, and South Carolina had that last year. They had 2 guys in particular that got drafted in the top 5 rounds, in Tonka Hemingway and T.J. Sanders, who were interior defensive linemen. And this is an area for South Carolina they haven't always recruited the best at. This is something that Brent Venables at Clemson did an incredible job of landing guys like Christian Wilkins, and you can just name a whole bunch of them. All of a sudden, I'm forgetting a couple of them, but it was really good at that. And you got to have depth in this league, not just 2 deep, but 4 deep, 3 deep. You got to be able to rotate 6 guys, and they had that last year. And I think that's so. To go to that point, Brownlow Dendy is a big piece. He'll be a starter. Monkel Goodwine was a former 4-star recruit who went to Alabama, who played meaningful snaps last year, will now be asked to start this year. They've gone out and landed a few other transfers in the portal, and that's obviously been huge. But they've got to develop some guys. They've got probably a 12th year. I don't know, COVID. I think we got a 12th year senior. I don't know how old he is, but I know it's Nick Barrett, who's been around, I think, since the Obama administration. But anyway, you got to have depth. And so when you start with that, I think that's the important. You ask about guys. The other guy that I would suggest is a freshman. I apologize, y'all are probably not familiar with my show. Pronouncing names, I had to get help on Tyranny's name from my lovely girlfriend.
I'm not always perfect either,
before the show started. And so anyway, with that being said, Justin O. We're gonna call him Justin O. He's a linebacker transfer. He's a freshman, Justin Orakwo or whatever. He's another guy to keep an eye on. He was a massive recruit, went to Alabama, didn't work out. He has transferred to South Carolina. I kind of expect him to step in and have a starting position.
Awesome. I know that there was a lot of draft picks. I think there was 5 total from South Carolina this year, if I'm not mistaken. 5 defensive players.
Key word on that. Defensive players, because I think that needs to be understood. You're right. If you just said 5, you're like, boy, there's a lot of time. It's 5 guys off of the defensive front.
And I think that was important that you mentioned the refilling that they've done on that side of the ball. Because like you're saying, Kyle Kennard, he by the time OU got to him, obviously he had a few games, and he was a known quantity at that point. But the ability to kind of scout talent, I'm curious your thoughts on this as it relates to Oklahoma. We hired Jim Nagy to be kind of one of our general managers, and one of the things he did for the Reese Senior Bowl was he was one of those that found the talent, if you will, and he would also find Division II talent that he would find at some time, Division III, that you saw viral videos of the center that came in. I mean, he was always one of the guys that said, if there's talent there, I'll find it, or you can find it. And so what Oklahoma's put a lot of effort is scouting college level players that may not be Division I yet, or maybe at other schools, even Division I schools, but just not a South Carolina, but like a Georgia Tech, or a school that wouldn't necessarily be the home run or the big name program. How do you see South Carolina kind of handling that ability to go out and locate talent, find it, get it through the portal, or how do you kind of see South Carolina handling that? Or, just in general, if it's easier to answer on a general scale, how do you see that being handled?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm for a school like South Carolina and a school like Oklahoma, it's a little bit different. Oklahoma can recruit with more of a national prestige and attract talent. South Carolina, you've got to find a guy, but you have to have coaches. It's South Carolina, not Oklahoma. I mean, I say that back. At every school, you got to have guys that can find talent. But to me, and I go back to 2010, 2011, 2012 under Steve Spurrier, that coaching staff could take a mid-level player and upgrade them to an elite player. You can go find great players all the time. Can you get them on your campus? Can you recruit them? That's fine. But you got to be able to take kind of the mid guy and develop it into the elite guy. And if you look at Kyle Kennard's numbers, let's just use him for an example. They were fine at Georgia Tech. That was a good pickup. There's nothing wrong with that. You're like, okay, good. We're replacing that guy. Now, did South Carolina or the wait staff or did somebody do something that caused this explosion for him to become what he became? I'm going to go inside based on what I've seen through life with Sterling Lucas, who's the defensive end and edge coaches here, seems to have that magical touch that all of a sudden Kyle Kennard took off. It's kind of like we're talking about with Gabriel Brownlow Dindy. Well, he was a great recruit. He was a phenomenal recruit, 5-star recruit. Is he max? Did something go wrong at Texas A&M despite the injury where he couldn't max his potential? Can South Carolina's defensive line coach, get the most out of him and transform him into one of the best defensive linemen in the country? So I think it's a combination of what you're asking. I do think when you talk transfer portal, the big thing is, you're looking for guys who aren't 1-year assassins. You're not looking for the guy who goes, it's all about me. And if we fall to look at what happened to Florida State last year. How many guys stayed invested after they lost to Georgia Tech or a few other games down the line? You got to have guys who at least stay invested in the team. South Carolina's 3-3. They lost to Alabama. They're 3-3. And as we as fans are looking down the line and we're like, well, Oklahoma out there is not going to be good. Texas A&M at that time was getting it rolling. South Carolina's got a bugaboo against Missouri and Clemson up there. 3-3. We're going, well, potentially it's a 5-7 season. But the players in that locker room looked at that Alabama game and said, hey, we're real close. We're real close, and we can make something of this. And a lot of those were transfers. I mentioned Demetrius Knight, Kyle Kennard. There were certain offensive linemen that were big parts of that. Rocket Sanders was at running back. And they basically said, hey, we're still invested despite the season being halfway over and we're 3-3. We can turn this thing around. So I don't think it's as easy as saying, well, talent or culture. I think there's got to be a lot of things that go into that formula.
Right. And I'm glad that worked out for your team. That did not work out for ours. Apparently they were trying really hard, especially the defensive players were trying to rally the troops and just didn't have it. And it's funny you mentioned Florida State. This is just a sidebar. Not only did it seem like the players gave up, I mean, their fans gave up. Prime example, in our neighborhood, there was a Florida State fan last year. He had his garden flag up all year round, and they didn't move. It was out like the first 2 games of the season. And then I take frequent walks in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden it switched to a Nebraska flag.
Oh, well, okay.
And I told
not better. That's not
Chad,
better.
I was like, Chad, they switched their flag. That's been Florida State now for 365 days. And he's like, you know how down bad you have to be to all of a sudden switch to a Nebraska one?
She'd shoot me if I told her, but she's got a little thing that has South Carolina on one side and Florida State on the other. It's a little football. And she'd shoot me if I asked her to bring that to me right now.
Oh, man.
So, hey, fans are fickle, right? That's what we do. We're saying, and I'll say this. I think that's more indicative of where we are as this what do I want to say? Not a football, but I think it's basketball. I think it's baseball. I think it's more indicative of where we are at for everything as it pertains to sports. Now, everything's a 1-year basis. South Carolina was 9-3 last year. They could be 4-8 this year. Oklahoma, we made a big deal of it. Y'all can tell me what y'all feel in the situation, but kind of pushing Dylan Gabriel out. I felt like you pushed Dylan Gabriel out to go for the 5-star freshman and Jackson Arnold, and that didn't work. Well, now you got John Mateer coming in. College sports as a whole is a 1-year basis, and you like you said with Florida State, you get in with your team. Florida State could go 10-2 this year. They could. It's just you don't know with your team right now because of the way the transfer portal is and how everything else works.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And I one thing I think gets overlooked in just all that is the coaches have to deal with it the way they do, and it's so hard to have consistent build. Nick Saban really got out at the perfect time. and I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he chose to retire, quote unquote. It was, dealing with what they have to deal with now, which is the Wild West and Russian roulette right now with any sort of regulation or any sort of rules. Just makes it really difficult. I want to just read real quick the defensive stats here it's just crazy. 2024 South Carolina defense. Now, I got this off the internet, so it's going to be 100% accurate, I'm sure. Ranked 12th nationally in scoring defense and 16th in total defense, allowing 27 points or fewer in all but 2 games. That's wild. Justin Okoronkwo. I wonder, is his older brother in the NFL? Obo?
I don't know, but you said his name better
That's
than
gonna
I was
sound
ever going to
terrible
say
if
it.
it's
So
not.
excellent work.
So we had an Obo
No,
Okoronkwo.
he's from Germany. His
Germany?
brother's not.
Okay.
He is a
What about?
foreign prospect that committed to
Gotcha.
Alabama.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
It's
but that was
spelled the exact same,
spelled the
isn't
exact
it?
same and everything. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
man, athletic family. Geez. But yeah. All right. So I want to ask a little bit more about the offensive side of
That
things.
was what I was about to do too.
Do you want to ask?
No, go ahead.
All right. I was
Relieving me.
just curious on. Tell us about the coaching staff a little on the offensive side. I haven't been able to really dive deep in the offensive coordinator, the position coaches, and I'm always curious because Alabama fans had a reason to complain with Nick Saban in the 2000 mids. What are some of the pros and cons, or some of the fan reaction to some of those position coaches or coordinators? And then what is yours as someone who kind of can look at the team objectively?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. You mentioned Alabama. That's funny. The new offensive coordinator is Mike Shula, former Alabama head coach, and he takes over for Dow Loggins. I think what is kind of interesting right now is Mike Shula coached the bowl game against Illinois, was the offensive coordinator, and there was a lot of people upset that maybe felt that that Lenora Sellers didn't run as much. What made him effective at the end of the year against Texas A&M, against Missouri, against Clemson was his scrambling ability, his ability to make things happen when things weren't there. And against Illinois, I can't tell you from a defensive standpoint if they did something, if they had a different kind of spy, or if they had 2 spies, or I don't know. There was a general feeling that with Mike Shula, he might hit that Lenora Sellers might have gotten out coached of that kind of improv skills, if you will. And so there's a lot of people with questions right now. It should be noted, Mike Shula, former offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, quarterback for Mike Shula when he was at the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton. So you've had a guy that is similar, that you understand his skills. But that's your offensive coordinator, your quarterback's coach. We'll see how it goes. I think there's a lot of people now I think there's a lot of people excited. I think there was a lot of people with a lot of questions after the bowl game on December 31st. The running backs coach is kind of a mercenary, if you will, Marquell Blackwell. He's been around for a time. South Carolina under Shane Beamers is oddly not recruited the running back position very well. It's a very strange situation. They're in limbo right now. South Carolina took a transfer from Utah State, Rasul Faison, who has not received word on eligibility for this year. He's 25 years old. I do joke South Carolina may have the oldest football running back tandem in America. Y'all laugh. You laugh. I don't mean college. I mean, South Carolina could very well have 2 25-year-old running backs this year at running back 1 and 2. Faison turned 25. Oscar Attaway Jr. is the backup running back. He will turn 25 during the football season. And, that means something. These are mature, physically mature guys. You're not 18 years old. You're not 20. Your body at 25 is physically mature. And it's actually a really funny thing. Find me a few other NFL running 1-2 tandems that average 25 years of age. So with that being said, but they are still waiting eligibility for Rasul Faison, and if he can get eligible. Had a very good year at Utah State. But that's Marquell Blackwell, and I think there's questions about him. Wide receivers, it feels like South Carolina's in a very good position. Mike Furry has come in. He was a head coach in a Division III program, Limestone. He left there. He came to South Carolina. He played in the NFL as a wide receiver. It looks like they've flipped the wide receiver room in 2 years under him. There's a lot of interesting talent. We don't have enough time to go through all of it, but it's really, really interesting there. And then a former offensive line coach and a former interim head coach for South Carolina, Sean Elliott, who went to go be the head coach at Georgia State. He left Georgia State as a head coach. He left as a head coach to come back to South Carolina to take the tight ends job. He is the tight ends coach. He's also helping with the offensive line where Lonnie Teasley is, and there's a lot of talent there. They've got to be coached up. They've got to be better. We joke about the escapability of Lenore Sellers. Well, if you watch like that Texas A&M game or the Missouri game, that's great that he could escape the pocket. It's awful that he basically had a free rusher coming at him basically every play. It's kind of like, oh, that's great. He's fantastic. He can get away people. Oh, wow, they can't block the three of us trying to rush the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we would like to have that not tested every play. It'd be a good thing to not be seeing so much. But yeah, I totally get it. Do you have a question? Sorry.
No, I was going to go to the chat.
Oh, we have a couple questions here.
Not questions, more make some statements.
Okay.
So we have
28 Boomer.
1982 Boomer Sooner says, this game in 2024 in Norman, I went over to the road entrance and yelled, Coach Shane. He remembered me and gave me a
That's
bro
awesome.
hug. He remembered me again. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
But then his next comment was Chad, T, and Will. It's amazing. This game in 2024 was over in the first 5 minutes of football.
It was a.
I believe it was 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's
a wild year,
again, I wanted to come to Oklahoma. It was a shame that the Alabama and Oklahoma game. I mean, you think about it. You look at your schedules now, and I'm big on who do you play when do you play where. I'll give you an example. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe Oklahoma had played Texas the week before. I could be wrong on this. I believe Oklahoma and Texas were the week before South Carolina.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And I looked at that game, and a lot of people up here, like, we run a funny morning show. We're chaotic by design. We're unprofessional. It's a morning show, 6 to 9. Nobody wants to wake up and like be all serious and talk all the kind of serious stuff that's going on out there. But I made the prediction. I said I like this game to be the upset of the year because of where it falls on South Carolina's schedule. The rivalry that is the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma coming off that game is going to be emotional. We knew at that time when I made that prediction of what time the game would be. Just like we now know the South Carolina Oklahoma game here will be an early game, either 12 or 1 o'clock, which again I think favors South Carolina in this game this year. But I looked at that game and I said, I'd like that to be the upset. I think that is the game that South Carolina wins. And Shane Beamer's notorious for getting a game in his first. He's now been through 4 seasons, but at that time he'd been through 3. He's notorious for getting a game that you don't expect him to get. And I circled that one and said he'll get that one. People thought I was drunk at 7 a.m. Happens. I don't know what to tell you. But I saw that as a game that fits South Carolina's schedule. And I think that's big always when you look at schedules. You look at, well, who do you play the week before? Are you coming off a bye week? What are you dealing with here or there? And that one lined up really well. And I think South Carolina was ready. I think Oklahoma was dealing with the Texas fallout and everything that occurred. And it set up perfectly for South Carolina. And you saw how it played out in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Right. And one thing a reason why I was going to ask about offense, because that game specifically, I think there was only one time in the entire game where South Carolina had to drive more than 40 yards to score because of how much we were turning the ball over. I believe there was one occurrence because of how we were just giving it back.
Wild, yeah.
Well, I'll say this. We laughed around here because South Carolina's up with big. I mean, they're up huge. It might have been the second, end of the second, might have been the third. And we fake a field goal to try and run up the score. And we're like, Shane, what are you doing? Don't upset people. Like, just
Hey, man, I'm one of those. I'm like, if you don't want them to score, stop it. It is what it is.
It's the guy next to us that normally says, we hadn't even made it to our seats. We were still like kind of down below where we usually like to stand during the entrances. We kind of watch the very little bit of the game and then we go up. And the guy who sits next to us, he was like, yeah, I wasn't even in the stadium yet. And I heard, he's like, I looked at the score. I was like, well, do I still go in or should I just go home? And my brother wanted to leave pretty early, but the only good thing about that game is I got to meet Barry Switzer that game.
Yeah.
But I had to wait till the 4th quarter to do so. So we sat through the whole thing.
Hey, we're chilling.
And we were chilling and we were trying to feel something in the stands. But
hopefully. Yeah.
It was tough, man.
The only thing that really gives Oklahoma fans any reason for any, I don't want to say silver lining or anything, was that our defense that year had been put in so many bad positions that we're hoping, the offense, if it can just be healthy, and then, obviously on paper, if everything pans out, to have an offense that could maybe get our defense some help would be awesome. Like that can maybe do something for them, because they went into such, they had, and I don't know, I'm rehashing this for Oklahoma fans all the time, but just in case, for people that don't follow it as closely, you may not have known, but they had at one point 8 starters out on their offense. Like when we got to Texas, we had 7 out. We didn't have we were at our, so like Bauer Sharp, number 10, our tight end, was trying to block but who, by the way, we for some reason, like, fans are mad at him, and then it's like, also, don't put him. Why are we trying to have him block Dylan Stewart off the edge? He's a tight end. Like, don't do that. Like, you're just setting him up for failure at that point. But he ended up being our number 1 option because we had our first 4 receivers, like Nick Anderson. Pro Football Focus has the number 6 or 7 wide receiver core in the country coming into that last year, and then not one of them played that they talked about. One of them tore their ACL, and so then they're just putting. It was just a wild.
We're lucky we
thing.
had 11 guys to even go out
and
there.
And then what? So it's like, man, if we can just finally have some offense to go. And I'm only saying this because, like, I'm wanting to, like, these away games, I'm hoping that they're good, like we put out a good quality performance, because I want them to be good games. Like I know it's fun to blow teams out, but it's fun to have. I don't know, like, you remember the wins more when you're playing a good team, and like for Oklahoma or South Carolina or any of these teams, like I want them to put good product out there so that the wins are meaningful, especially when it comes to college football playoff and those kind of aspects of it, I guess. I had a question on the college football playoff as well for you. They changed how they're doing the seeding. What do you think? Do you think there's a chance that you could get? I know that they're looking at adding like 4 automatics if they go to 16 from the SEC and 4 from the Big Ten. But this year, it's so odd to me because it seems like there's so many really good teams in the SEC on paper that could be really good this year. Do you see 4 or 5 teams from this conference getting into the playoff? Because I don't know. I know losses look bad, but I don't know if it's becoming that NFL type of thing where losses don't kill you anymore because they see how good the teams are in our conference, and that, maybe I'm just an SEC bias guy now, which I used to yell about when we were in the Big 12. But now that I'm here, I'm here. You know what I mean? But yeah, just curious your thoughts on that.
So you're only referring to this year, right? You're only referring to, because obviously we know everything's going to change in 2026. So you're asking about 2025, is that right?
Kind of both this next year and then just going forward, I guess, whenever they do the 2026 changes. Kind of a bad question.
I mean, as far as it goes this year, I think a precedent's set. The committee's not going to, I mean, let's be honest, Alabama, South Carolina, Mississippi, and no offense to them, I watched them. They were better than SMU. SMU was not a good football. They were fine, but I mean, my goodness, boy, did they play a weak schedule. They had no business being in the playoff. But I think you saw where when you have humans doing it, there's always going to be human bias. I mean, it's just it doesn't matter what we're talking about, politics or sports or religion or whatever. There's human bias. And I think you saw that this year. I give Indiana a pass. I'm probably the one of the few, and I don't know why. I can't explain that, because if you look at what Indiana did, it's no better than what SMU did. And if we're being honest, probably both Mississippi. I would make a debate for Alabama and South Carolina, especially at the end of the year. I'd be willing to put Mississippi in there, and then, all right, what matters more, and let's spend 3 hours on that discussion. But
yeah,
I think what you saw is that committee, and I think what the SEC saw and the Big Ten saw also, by the way, and I think that's why you're seeing this. I think that they saw a bias to keep the SEC and the Big Ten from dominating the playoff, and so I think what you're not going to see that this year. I think an SEC team will, for lack of a better word, get screwed. Somebody's going to be there that is better than the second team in the ACC, the second team in the Big 12, whatever it may be. You're going to see that, I think. So I don't think that happens. How we see the 2026 playoff and moving forward, how they design it. Listen, I'm all for it. Let the 16 best teams in. Let just you want to take the conference champions, fine. Let the 16 best teams in and go from there. And I'll be honest, and this is, again, are we doing it with a committee where humans are involved and agendas are being placed? Or are we doing it with the BCS computer system? A an entity that doesn't have bias, that it's straight numbers. You know, do
Or
we
a
put
blend, I guess, if you could.
yeah,
But,
do we? No, I don't think you can blend it. I think it's do you
Mhm.
go with a system that is based on numbers? And the thing about system that's based on numbers is coaches know, oh, okay, I get this amount of points for running the score up. I get this amount of points for playing a harder schedule. I get this amount of points for beating a top 10 team or losing to a bottom dweller.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't know. We
Mhm.
genuinely don't know what that committee is and who's in there and who's influencing what. Or I mean, you guys probably why Survivor or I don't know. I don't watch those shows, but you got people that are coming together. Hey, help me out. I'll help you out. You rub
Yeah.
my back, I'll scratch your back. It is what it is. It's the world that we live in. Alabama, South Carolina, and Mississippi. Two of those three should have been in over Indiana and SMU.
Yeah. Well,
Like, I agree. And also, like Chad's talked about, like they want to throw out like most deserving. Well, deserving doesn't mean necessarily you're one of the best.
right. That's what always bothered me was it's like it's for me it was the playoffs about getting the best teams in. You know, what are the best teams? I got so sick of hearing most deserving. I'm like, well, because what was it the year? Well, it was 2 years ago, and who didn't get in? That was Georgia when they had like one loss or whatever it
Yeah,
was. I'm like,
that was
I'm sorry,
ridiculous.
that's the best team.
That's
Yeah,
that was how do you go through the regular season
Dude,
undefeated,
you
losing
sound
the
like me.
conference championship game and get kicked? That was and
Yeah.
for the record, just for complete transparency, most of my family's from Georgia. Georgia actually is my
Oh,
second team. My daughter loves them. My son hates them. It's a great
that's
deal
awesome.
difference.
No, but you're totally, and that would always bother me because it was like, well, it's the four best. I'm like, no, it's not. You're telling me Georgia's not better. For me, Georgia was still the best team in the country. They lost one
Yeah,
game. They can
that was
have a
stupid.
bad day. Yeah, but so that's what I always. And you're 100% right. 16 best teams. I don't care if they're 8 of them are SEC. Sorry, they just are. I mean, but I just that always bothers me when it's not clear what the actual qualities are or whatever you need. But yeah,
No, I agree. And even then, like I know a lot of people gave SMU some heck, but I personally, I wasn't big on Penn State when I was watching them. I was like, this, I'm not sold here either. But I was like, I think by the end of the season, I thought South Carolina and Old Miss and who was it? No, Tennessee ended up getting in. It's like I thought both of those were better than the Penn State that I saw.
South Carolina, y'all.
But
I was making
that was
arguments that
just
y'all
me.
were, just that back half of the season, y'all were playing as good as.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe not Ohio State, how they turned out, but like as good as any of the other top 4, top 5. I mean, just in terms of how you looked at the end of the year.
And like knowing too that
I
your
thought y'all were
losses
good,
came
man.
with an injured quarterback.
Yeah,
or like
and how they
like,
came. It was.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we definitely were arguing like South Carolina being on that cut for sure and being like, it's just unfortunate, like how the earlier of the season played out.
Yeah, and to your point, look, I thought Penn State was fine. I thought they deserved to be in there. Now James Franklin's a whole other issue. Again, James Franklin's a whew, boy. All right, but I don't know. I think that we know a bias is there, which is fine. I have no problem with it. You know what you got to do, but yeah, that's how I see the playoffs shaking out. Truthfully, over the next 2 or 3 years.
Modern day caveman agrees with you. He says, "Go back to the BCS computers."
You know what the formula is. You know what the formula is. I can't say we're going to agree with it, but we know what the formula is. And listen, Ohio State loses to Michigan in the final game of the year, an average Michigan team at best, by the way, at home, and they get in, and it's look, in years past, I would bet in years past Ryan Day's fired at the end of the regular season, but they got into because you don't lose to Michigan up there. You don't, and I'm a Michigan fan. I grew up a Michigan fan. I love the Fat Five. But you don't lose to Michigan in that rivalry, and Ryan Day did, and he's blown it. And he got in, and he won the national championship. And I would assume he's got enough money to keep buying all that jet black hair dye to keep him going.
Oh my God.
For the rest of his life.
I'd be that's so funny.
Chad went on a bit of a rant.
Well, my beard, when I get so mad because I work hard on my beard just to make sure it looks. I wish I could grow one, man.
Wait till you get this age, buddy. Kids, family. Work. It's a good time. I'm only 43. I know y'all think I'm like 63. It's good.
I don't understand it. I feel like a beard is so that you can show like some wisdom.
No, what's hilarious is the fact that there was an actual whole like article written about how he doesn't actually dye his beard.
He's lying.
We're like, stop
That's
immediately.
a flat out lie.
Ryan. I thought you were talking about Chad. Yeah, good deal.
Oh
no. Chad does not have a beard.
Chad can't grow a beard.
I was like, that's a good article. I want to read that one.
He doesn't dye. That's
Ryan
true.
Day for sure. Also, too, with the playoff, Oregon got hosed.
Oh,
with the placement. That was annoying.
Enjoy that, yeah.
Yeah, but
You said you covered recruiting. Before we let you get out of here in a few minutes, any big recruiting gets or any trends that you see for South Carolina that are kind of big names we should maybe know about a little bit? Or
well, they're in pursuit. They're in pursuit. 5-star offensive lineman Darius Gray. One thing that's been surprising, you talk about it, and I follow this. South Carolina has recruited the quarterback position really, really well. For example, they just brought in transfer portal quarterback who's a top 60 recruit, Aaron Noland, who was actually, speaking of Ohio State, was a freshman up there this year. And so right now, whether he's the heir apparent to Lenora Sellers or not is to be determined. They got another freshman quarterback who is a lesser known guy named Cutter Woods, who is really, really impressed. But I say that because they've recruited really well at quarterback. One other position they've recruited exceptionally well at is at offensive line. 5-star Darius Gray. I think Darius Gray figured out the rules. Let me just point this out. I love this. I think Darius Gray is on official visit number 17 this weekend, and it's South Carolina. He's been to LSU. He's been all over the place. Tennessee is another big one for him. But that's a big one. They're tracking a few others. South Carolina's done really well going in the D.C. area and landing guys like Dylan Stewart, who y'all mentioned, Nick Harbor, who was a big-time recruit, Desmond Zulu was a big-time 4-star recruit a couple years ago at defensive end. They've had a lot of success up there. They're working on it. But what I continue to be impressed with is their offensive line recruiting. Now, you got to coach them up a little bit, as we were talking about, not letting them get to whoever the quarterback is. On the flip side of that, they just lost out on a recruit, Carson Baker, who went to Florida. Running back recruiting has been awful at South Carolina. I don't know what the issue is all of a sudden. They can't get an elite high school running back to come, and that's really odd. Defensive line, they're in for a couple guys. Linebacker, they got to continue to upgrade. In South Carolina, Torian Gray is one of the best defensive back coaches in the country. He's already landed Xavion Currents, who is a top 100 recruit. They're after Samari Matthews, who I know people around here are hoping it doesn't turn into an NIL situation, but South Carolina and Texas are going against each other for Samari Matthews. He's a top 100 defensive back recruit. They just lost another kid, Peyton. He ended up committing to the other USC, that school out west that was founded long after South Carolina was. But they've recruited really well. They've had a good run of recruits on campus of late, and we'll kind of see where it goes. But to go back to what we were discussing earlier, South Carolina has also done really well in the transfer portal for whatever reason the last 2 or 3 seasons. And so I don't think they're quite as worried about high school recruiting. You get maybe your 15 to 18 recruits in, the guys that you really want, and then you go, all right, we'll backfill in the transfer portal with guys who are instant impact.
Sorry, I just realized I had our own Ron Deal out there. You mentioned NIL, and I'd hate to keep you on much longer. You've been gracious with your time so far. I got to get your opinion, though, on just the overall how NIL is being handled at South Carolina, the fans' thoughts on it, and just kind of how the university is going around or trying to raise revenue. I know Oklahoma has a lot of kind of chefs in the kitchen right now trying to figure out the best way to get more money, pretty much. I mean, to put it simply, Governor Stitt just did issued an executive order where now donations to the university, instead of having to donate directly to athletics, you can donate to the university. And now at president's discretion, he can send money to the athletics department, basically. So we had a lot of our big donors that didn't like donating to athletes. They wanted to donate to the school. But, they'll say if the president thinks it'll be best used there, then he can, at his discretion, move it. But how is South Carolina handling the whole NIL world and situation?
So new athletic director, Jeremiah Donati, came in on January 1. He is, at least so far, I think, been forward thinking. He originally worked actually for Lee Steinberg and that sports talent agency, and I think he understands it. South Carolina is just not, they're not going to be top half. And, we're talking 8. They're not going to be top half of the SEC ever in NIL funds. I think there's got to be a better job of fundraising, but I think they've done well. I think they've done well. They've got a plan, kind of like we're all learning with these collectives. South Carolina has one called Garnet Trust, and they talked last week about transferring contracts from Garnet Trust to the university now with these new deals and now NIL deals. Anything over $600 has to be subjected to this new clearinghouse. Nobody, and I'm not being funny. I just nobody knows. I mean, nobody knows. I mean, what makes the three of us worth more than if you're a college? Just think about college recruits. Like, what makes the three of us worth more than $600? How do you justify Chad or Tierney or me? Well, you're worth this. You're worth that. You're worth that. Why can Chad go sign autographs because a fan loves him for, let's just throw a number out there, $20,000? Why can Tyranny go like do a media deal for $10,000 and then they come look at me and they're like, well, sorry, you can't get an NIL
Yeah.
deal over $600, even though it's the same. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more litigation to come through NIL, to be honest with y'all, because like, how do you value fair market value?
Right.
What is it? Are you the starting quarterback? Or are you the backup safety? And I'm the third string offensive lineman. By the way, I'm 5'7", 160, so no lineman in me. But the point being is like, how do you calculate that? If you have children and your child has a player from your hometown and that player is the backup center, well, but that child has grown up loving that player, seen him play through high school, and that child wants your backup center who's playing 17 snaps a season to come to their birthday party and hang out, and you want to pay him, I'm throwing a hypothetical number, $10,000. Well, why are you telling me that player's not worth $10,000? That's what you're
Right.
willing to pay.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I think at South Carolina, to go back to your original question, I think we're still trying to figure out how you justify NIL dollars. And obviously, and I see it's 8:55, so I'm not going to keep y'all longer. But that goes against what rev share, revenue sharing. All right, we're gonna spend this amount of money on football, this amount on basketball, this amount on women's basketball, this amount on baseball. I still think it's too convoluted, and I know these athletic directors are trying to sound like they're smart and they know what they're talking about. There's too much legal action still to happen against all of this.
No, absolutely. And Tina, I've made the point several times. It's a lot of fans, I think, are going to not regret, but just look back distastefully on the day that this all happened. Whenever programs start getting cut, like you see
Well,
the soccer's and those things kind of go away for a lot of universities.
and I'll leave you with this because it's a great article. It's on the Athletic. Apparently, actually, I know this. It's Auburn. It's Auburn. All right, I'll say it out loud. I'm allowed to say it because that can be
Breaking
reckless
news.
and this reckless speculation. Lenore Sellers got offered $8 million for basically 2 years to go to Auburn. $4 million a year. Like there's nobody that you can't figure out how to regulate this stuff right now. And so kind of what you're saying, these ADs they're going to speak, they're going to give you political correctness talk when they speak and like, yeah, I got this figured out. We're going to figure it out. They don't know. We don't know. Like
Right.
I've been around this thing. I've watched 100. I've got a great story on a certain defensive end back in 2012 that had a monster tackle that everybody knows about that knocked a helmet off against Michigan, and him coming back to his car and there being stacks of cash in his car. Like it's like you can't regulate this stuff, and the NCAA, everybody's trying to do it. I put a tweet out. Today that just basically was like, man, I love college football from August to November, and after that, I don't care for it.
Yeah, I think that's 100%.
No, we're with you. No, we had the same thing happen with our players, and it was Ohio State was offering a lot of our defensive players. I mean, like you said, millions.
Yeah.
And
this is in season. I mean, it's just like
it's wild. It is definitely wild, and we keep saying it's gonna get worse before it gets better. So we gotta buckle up.
Just let the Boosters pay him. Pay under the table.
Yeah.
Oklahoma was great at that under Barry Switzer. Clemson was great under Danny. Just let it. Hey, just buy Eric Dickerson. What was that? Not Fiat. What was that? Camaros. I don't know. I can't remember the car. But let the schools buy them cars and houses, and let's just go back to that. Knock it out.
Yeah, let's just have fun. What are we doing? Like Reggie Bush was fine. Didn't need to get all mad at him.
Got a house.
People are like, well, he doesn't deserve that. I'm like, guys, look, he's Reggie Bush. I mean, like, if you were that good and fast, I'm sure you would have gotten it too. Like, I mean, there's just differences, but
yeah, I mean, there's athletes, when Chad was at school, bringing out their wads of cash, going out at night. Like, you don't have a job. Come on now.
It is nuts. Well, hey, we appreciate your time. We'd love to have you back on during season after a few games leading into the South Carolina game and get your thoughts on the season as it had happened so far and all that. But we really appreciate it. If you got anything to plug or any channel or anything like that, go ahead.
No, I mean, you can listen to us. You mentioned that obviously the way things work these days, the best way to go and listen to us is 1075thegame.com. We have an app. You can listen to us. We are on 3 different radio stations in this state: 1075 The Game here in Columbia, 100.3 The Game in, boy, I hate to do this all of a sudden, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach and 100.5 The Game in Florence. And certainly, as you mentioned, my Twitter account is WILGUNTER, Will Gunner, on Twitter, and I tweet about bourbon and sports. That's what I try to keep it to. So, but
That's
certainly
awesome.
appreciate y'all having me on, and certainly anytime y'all know how to contact me, and look forward to gladly always joining you.
Yep, and we'll
Yeah.
make sure to put your handle and all that in the chat here.
Appreciate it,
Yeah.
man. Y'all take care. It was great talking to y'all.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right.
That was awesome.
Mhm.
I got to say, we haven't had a guest yet that just hasn't killed it.
No pressure to all of our future guests.
Don't mess up. Be great. How about that? Well, we're a little out of focus here, I feel like.
We
That's on
are, and
me.
we're also too big.
Well, yeah, we are. Here we go. Let's go back to being professionals. There we go. Wait, is that? No, that's not it. Right there. And banners. Boom. That was awesome. South Carolina's going to be good. Really good. Their defense is going to be ridiculous.
I think they're going to be a lot like us.
Yeah.
Like
That's
they're
a great
going to
point,
have a
yeah.
really strong defense, and then offense is going to be like maybe, which I will say, and this is not on John Mateer, but they do have a proven SEC quarterback. So
Yeah,
they do
no-
have that one up on us. Now, that's not to say I think John Mateer can't be that, but you get what I'm saying.
No, you're 100%
He's already
right.
played a season in the SEC. He's already had some success in the SEC. So I do think they have that leg up on us. Don't know how I feel about a 25-year-old running back. Could be great. I mean, he's right with the development. Definitely a lot different than, an 18, 19, 20-year-old.
Yeah,
25, but also, why are we still 25 in college?
That's also a good question.
Just going to throw that out there. Why haven't we, moved on for whatever reason it might
One sec.
be? But
Excuse
while we're
me.
here, I'm going to go ahead and plug in some of our things. Please follow the Voice of College Football on all your social medias, on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Also, check out the Voice of College Football website. They have lots of written material there you can read. If you're a football fan, just through and through, you can check out some of their stuff there. If you don't like looking at our faces, which is totally understandable, I would understand. You could also listen to our podcast and Josh on Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you hear that your podcast, you can check us out there too. Just look up Voice of College Football Oklahoma, and you should be able to find us there. Additionally, if you have not already, which I'm looking over in the chat, all of you do follow us, but follow us on X at Chad P. Smith _ and Tyranny _ Kristen. And we would just love to have you guys back here every Monday and in the live chat. We do have Ole Miss already scheduled. We have Leanne Herring. She's from the Old Miss channel. Another woman talking football with us.
Boom.
Love that. She's going to be live June 30th as of now. And then we're still looking for an Auburn for potentially next week, but we're
hoping we
on
can
it.
get that worked. Yeah.
We're hoping we can get that worked out.
I'm going to give a shout out to Steve-O Rollo. Just got here. I'm going to go back and watch from the beginning. Boomer. Thank you, Steve-O. Appreciate that, man. Means a lot whenever y'all take time to listen.
Yeah, especially right now, if you're watching during the Thunder game, we appreciate it. You're dual tasking us. Stacy's keeping us updated on the score. I may or may not have been peeking at my phone a little bit.
You're fine. Well, we know there's a Thunder game going on, so we're going to get through these updates with the team fairly quickly. Don't want to ignore them really, but we wanted to at least show those that are listening right now the some of the updates that have happened. First off, PFF 2026 NFL Draft running back rankings came out. I don't know who Trevor Sakima is. Sakima? I think I do. I recognize the name. All I know is it has Jay Knott at number 2. So I was like, we're going to talk about that because Jay Knott's at number 2.
Fantastic. Love that.
Yeah. Jeremiah Love, obviously a really good running back out of Notre Dame. So if you're in this list of names, you're a pretty good player, and to be number 2 on it, happy to see.
I will say too, I love that Jaden Knott's on it, but then it makes me happy because Xavier Robinson, Javonte Barnes coming back like that. I think we should have a pretty deep running back room.
Yeah, man, we really do have so much depth that if we can just pan out.
Yeah, if it can just pan out. I'm very excited about an Ott X.
Yeah.
1-2, and that's just my prediction.
If you haven't seen either, Oklahoma has 2 of the top 10 highest graded wide receivers going into next year in the SEC. They had Giovanni Gibson, obviously Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer. Also, we don't know. I think it was Satanga.
No, it's
Keontae Lewis. Oh, my bad. But we don't know if Javante Barnes will be able to, what he'll be able to give us in the beginning of the season. Hopefully he can come back next year. I've heard so many different things. At first it was he's out the whole year. Then it was week 8. And then BV says game 1. Now,
wait, for who?
Giovanni Gibson.
Oh, I thought you said Javante Barnes. Like, wait, what?
I may have said that not thinking, but Giovanni Gibson, if I messed it up just then, my bad. I'm hoping that he's okay. I'm going to go with he's just not going to play next year. And if he does, awesome. If he's there week 1 and
that's just because we were hurt so badly last year that we're like going to assume the worst and hope for the best.
Let's do the opposite of last year. Okay, let's just say they're never going to come back. Fair. And if they do,
it was definitely Keontae, because I remember being like, I like that name. Like, I like how it rolls off.
I liked it. I meant to put it in here. Either way, we have another wide receiver that was number 7 or so. Again, yeah, we can go back. Yeah, if you find it, let me know. But I'm going to move on to this next one real quick because OU fans are going to be familiar with this recruit's older brother. Tony Jefferson's little brother was on his visit to OU, class of 2024, 6'5", 230. He was at Southwestern Junior College. His film looks great. Obviously, really athletic. Makes great contested catches. He has a lot of great film of him over the middle and breakout routes, doing really good stuff. So excited to see him. Hopefully he can get a chance to play at OU. Obviously the name is familiar, and he grew up watching his brother play here. He's going to have a love for the university, and I always think that is I chalk it up to a talent. It's not really a talent, but it's something that helps players outside of their talent level. He has legit skills, and I'm hoping that he gets a shot here at Oklahoma, or chooses us if he gets to. So
am I tripping? Is that quite an age gap between brothers? Or all my years running together?
Yeah, no, they're not. Tony Jefferson's been in the league for about 10 years.
Okay, I was sitting here thinking, I was like, man, that's a big age gap. Okay, sorry, I'm just making sure I wasn't.
And then the next update I want to give real quick, we got our 11th commit of the 2026 cycle. With running back Deshaun Walker. I think it was Deshaun Walker, I believe. He committed to Oklahoma, 4-star running back out of Raymore Peculiar High School. The best. It is Countess Lewis. Good job, T. It was Countess Lewis. Raymore Peculiar High School wins the award for coolest sounding high school name from Peculiar, Missouri. Or no, yeah,
it's quite peculiar.
What was the? Yeah, what is that from? Is that from Lemony Snicket, Series of Unfortunate Events?
I'm sure Lemony Snicket used it in Harry Potter.
Peculiar.
Oh yeah, that probably is from the show. That
it's got to be that.
Gronk voice. Gronk.
Yeah. Running back, 6 foot, 205 pounds. This was a quote he had, and I want to give OU insider Parker Thune credit. This was his quote, but he said, "The culture has been there. The culture and overall vibe has to be there." And he chose Oklahoma, obviously, and he had at the end of his freshman year of high school, he had offers from Georgia, Oregon, Tennessee, and a lot of other schools. OU offered him 38 days ago, and on May 9th, and he ends up choosing Oklahoma. Deshaun, my bad. And so that is, I think it just goes to show kind of how well, and you got to give DeMarco Murray credit here. That's another good pickup, another good running back class that he has coming in, or really already a young running back class. I don't know if he's going to get. I'm sure he'll go after maybe a couple other RBs, but we're so stacked right now with who we have that I don't know. I'm just interested to see what he does there. Yeah, that's true. But, a great pickup. Obviously, it's exciting to see kind of that. And here is the recruiting class as a whole, if you're wondering. 4-star wide receiver Daniel Odom. 4-star quarterback Jaden O'Neal, who just said he's going to take an official
trip to Florida State.
I don't think he's going to be at Oklahoma. I think he's going to Florida State.
I think there's just too much. Where there's smoke, there's fire there. And again, there's, to his credit, we did change coordinators. Is it we are kind of moving on for him, or maybe Arbuckle doesn't think they fit his scheme? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But wherever he goes, wish him the best as well. But I agree. I am nobody, but I've kind of already scratched him off of our list. And if he ends up at Oklahoma, fantastic. You obviously love to have a talent like that, but I've kind of already.
Yeah.
I've already. Yeah. Kind of chalked him up to a Florida State guy.
And what's bad is I can't even really blame him. It's just a weird. I wouldn't.
No, I
can't
blame
weird
him either.
vibes.
Yeah. No,
it's like it reminds me of like Sister Wives thing. I mean, it's just like how do you have two favorites? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just me. I can't blame him. But 4-star linebacker Corey Smith, as we just talked about, 4-star running back Deshaun Walker, 4-star inside offensive lineman Noah Best, 3-star
name.
tight end Ryder Mix. It's a great name too. 3-star lineman Will Conroy, 3-star defensive lineman Brian Harris, 3-star cornerback Derek Johnson II, 3-star edge Matthew Nelson, and 3-star safety Nico Jandro. I can never say his name. That's embarrassing. But anyways, wanted to end it with a Todd McShay quote about the one John Mateer via his McShay report. John Mateer is a breathtaking prospect to study. Don't know why I capitalized S there. Didn't mean to, and that's starting to really bother me. Todd McShay, though, by his report, I think it just goes to show, again, it's not just us saying that we think he can be good. It's people that are paid to look at these things. They're all kind of seeing the same thing, and that's obviously encouraging and something that I think is pretty cool to see. So let me stop sharing there. Let me go back to this. Boom, like a pro. And we're back. So I don't have anything else in my notes. What do you have, or anything at all, or we just want to go root for the Thunder? And
I am personally ready to go root for the Thunder.
Do it.
It's been a good preview. It's been a good little recap there, but we got some NBA Finals basketball going on, unlike some cities. Like ones that are in Texas.
Oh!
Sorry, I've just had some people who were talking crap, but in the best way.
We want to thank Will for hopping on again.
Yes, we do want to thank Will for stopping by with us, and all of our guests have been so great. We hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. We know it was a little more dead in the chat as it normally is. Let's do the finals. We don't blame you.
Yeah,
we get it.
OKC's
we are here every Monday at 7 p.m. Central Time, and we hope that you join us. And if you've been joining us every week, we truly appreciate all of your support. While we are saying that, take 3 seconds, not even that long, but just take 3 seconds to like the video. 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and press that like button. Subscribe to our channel if you have not already. Throw a comment in our comments. That's actually probably the best way you can help us.
Yeah.
Again, you can say whatever you want. Boomer Sooner, Go Thunder.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, don't break community guidelines, but yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't say anything unhinged. But anyways,
yep.
We really enjoy all of your support. We hope that you join us again next week. And anything else?
Then God bless y'all. We hope you have a good week. Hope again, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Awesome. You have a blessed week. We'll see you next Monday.
Boomer.